My name is Jerry McGowan. I'm the Deputy Incident Commander on California Incident Management Team 16. Within the fire community, we have always had a learning culture. When we went from LFO to ICS and all that was learning. As we progressed, we learned. And when we progressed, we learned to fix it. We did AARs when we were saying, what are the lessons learned? What are the best practices? And we continually practice that to make ourselves better. And we continually do that through the years. And that's from the firefighter on the ground digging the dirt. And how efficient can I be as I'm digging this line and working with my fellow firefighters, all the way to the incident commander who's working with agency administrators and working with the public, making sure that everybody understands why we're doing what we're doing. And we should continue to be in that learning mode. I think that every situation we learn. That means that everybody has to have a growth mindset. Everybody that walks in here doesn't know everything. And if they do, we have an issue. You need to come in and be able to learn and have an open mind to whatever that is, that issue, that situation, that problem, whatever that is, to have an open enough mind to see and listen, do some active listening to the other side to make sure that you're balanced in when you make a decision, and make sure that your decision is balanced to consider everybody and all the people that are involved.
So I just want to start with, again, back to the life of this incident. From the beginning, this was a full suppression strategy on the complex of fires. And if you took all 15 fires initially started this complex, this lightning complex, there was strategies going on within each of those individual 15 fires.
We as an organization don't have language for this yet. We can't call it this one thing. We have to call it full suppression, but we're doing it in a way that everyone kind of knows that we want to be going. So that tension was central.
As these fires grew, then the tactics were modified based on the fire behavior that was observed, the environmental conditions that were occurring, and the time of the year.
They had pieces of risk that they could not share.
So my perspective kind of captures the early stages of the incident as well as the closing stages of the incident, and how we use the ISAP process and the SRA process.
What I did, I turned a map around, so we just had the white background, and I put that up and handed out Post-it notes. And on the left side of that map, I wrote the word normal and talked about how that meant we're going to go direct, keep the fire as small footprint as possible. And then on the other side, I wrote the word willy nilly. And that meant that we were just blindfold the helicopter pilot and the PSD operator and just send them out, putting fire anywhere randomly on the landscape. And the intent was to show two extremes. We weren't going to do either of those, but we were going to operate somewhere between those two extremes. I asked people on their Post-it note, come up and say, I want to do this thing because a value statement, because of some value I fear or I want, I value this thing or I fear that outcome, a because statement, so that, and that's the end state. So this is essentially task purpose end state, but because we had a mixed crowd, I didn't want to go through and explain task purpose end state. Because we had resource folks there, we had folks from the forest, district rangers, forest supervisors, we had lots of different representations in the room. So then I had a couple that I put up talking about how I want to build a process where everyone's voice is heard, just to demonstrate what was going on. And then I wanted to put that Post-it where they felt comfortable within that spectrum. And what that gave everyone the opportunity to stand up and have their voice heard, and for them to indicate where they felt comfortable so that everyone could visualize. We didn't get down to tactics or anything, but it gave us an indication of who was where and where they're comfortable. I didn't know what kind of container I had. I didn't know if people would feel comfortable voicing with district ranger, forest supervisor, tribal folks, and then hotshot soups and all the like. But people stepped right up and started voicing their opinions. Most of what people were putting up were talking about how they, as division supervisors or crew leads, felt out of control, that this process was going on outside of their ability to control. So a lot of the post-it notes were, I want trigger points, I want pace models, I want prepare lines. I heard very loud and clear that they didn't want the firing group to come in and begin lighting ridges before their division, their piece of ground was ready for it. If you look on the board, most of the operators are to the left, more towards normal, and most of the forest level folks were to the right.
It was a little different on how we used the process between the two times that I was here. So just quickly, I'll cover the reasons what we used it for the first time we were here, because that time it was really the perch fire that they were concerned about. That was a priority fire within the complex, just because of the close proximity to the community of Orleans. Now the Mosquito and the Bluff and all the other handful of fires that were further away from the town of Orleans, we also did some strategic risk assessments on those fires.
We had decided to burn a ridge, but the question was asked me, why do we have to burn this ridge today? What's the rush? And I didn't have an answer. And that's when I realized I needed to talk to ops a little bit more. And I asked them the same question, why this ridge today?
When you are putting any kind of strategic firing operations on the ground in August on the Six Rivers or anywhere in Northern California, that definitely grabs their attention.
As we moved into this new space, there was discomfort because it is out of the ordinary. And just the fact that it is out of the ordinary, maybe we're doing it safer or not as safe, but it's hard to tell because you have to take the time to explicitly reevaluate. It's not intuitive anymore. It's not something we're routinely practicing.
It was multiple hour-long sessions. It was conversations with the agency administrators and the tribal representatives, and we sat down to grab, okay, what is important? What are those values at risk that we really need to protect? And then what is that associated risk to our firefighters in order to achieve those results? And after all those conversations concluded, the fire characteristics that were desired really were important to be able to successfully pull off that operation there. And so a lot of the conversations in those ISAP SRA sessions were, how can we successfully get those fire line intensities, those fire characteristics, because the request was to not have high intensity crown fire type of runs because of what it would do to the water system there above the community of Orleans. Could we pull off those firing operations that would achieve more of a prescribed fire type of an effect there? So low flame lengths, very low fire line intensities there. There was buy-in, there was ownership in the plan. And again, that was from agency administrators, the tribal representatives, to the IMT that was in place at the time, all the way down to those folks that were the operations, the branch directors and the firefighters they were the ones doing that work. They were the ones that were gonna have to stand on that ridge top and that ridge line and pull fire down the hill towards the community of Orleans.
The strategic ops or the ISOP process of what we were going to do, that we were going to go around that big box and look in these two fires around 43,000 acres. And I think it helped having the strategic ops there going through basically the same thing he put to the AAs, the ISOP process was good.
Initially, we were trying to temper in the beginning, and now it switches just a bit. The ISAP SRA tool was used again to have those conversations, to talk through if it made sense to continue the strategic firing operation. And in this case, there was more risk to our responders than the benefits of if we were to continue on that strategic firing. So basically the conditions out in the woods, everything were not as conducive to achieve those results of beneficial fire in the landscape as they were 30 days ago. Because of the big recent rain event, because of the time of year, because of less daylight, those conversations led to the decision that, okay, it is time to cease the strategic firing operations and then focus those efforts back on the suppression repair.
We don't have care facilities very close, and so if someone gets hurt, it takes a long time to get them out. And what we found is if you don't get critical care in that first 60 minutes of an injury, the likelihood of that injury being life-threatening or life-altering significantly goes up.
We really wanted to make sure that we were doing right by the field and coming up with the appropriate strategy with the highest likelihood or the highest probability of success for those individuals on the ground. And so what we did was we utilized the safety individuals amongst the command and general staff. We utilized the responder risk. And so with the critical values, we had weight associated with where those ranked within the ISAP process to be able to truly drive the strategic action for implementation of the tactics on the ground.
The idea behind incident strategic alignment process and strategic risk assessment, that is new. But what's not new is that we have always been thinking about that risk to responders. We've always been thinking about values at risk. Everybody and anyone has an internal process or a team process to get through those conversations. But what is new is that the benefit of having something, a tool to use to make sure that we get all those people in the room at the same time to talk about the risk to responders and those values at risk. And that's also the versatility of this tool, is that even if I wasn't the first incident commander on here and the last, that everything that was done leading up to this team being here, it's something tangible. It could be passed down to the next team and the next team and the next team. And the values at risk conversation usually don't change, but the conditions surrounding those values at risk and those threats to the firefighters, that's what does change. And that's what the beauty of it is. It's a validation of values at risk and what's changed since the last time this conversation was talked about. And that creates that continuity when you have multiple teams on an incident. Obviously, the agency administrators are going to say, but the variable is the different incident management teams coming in. This process kind of makes sure there's continuity of operations through the life of an incident.
Lessons learned. Actually, there's two things there. When we talk about lessons learned and we talk about AARs, have true AARs. Have true learning experiences with AARs. In other words, there are a lot of best practices, and a lot of times we focus on the lessons learned more than the best practices, and we don't turn ourselves to the best practices. We just assume that those are going to go on and really practice them. Get down to the true meat of the order to really mean to make those AARs meaningful. It's not just a practice. It really is a system to where we can make ourselves better and learn.